Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews. Coming to you guys with my review for the first episode of the new Apple TV Plus series, Sugar. Alright, so just got a chance to check out the first episode of this new series here on Apple TV Plus, starring Colin Farrell, of course, which for me was the big draw, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be as well. He was great in Banshees of Inisherin, got his first Oscar nomination a couple years ago now, right? And, been a big fan of his for quite some time, and as I'm sure a lot of other people are, like I said. So really great to see him in this series, and he's been attached to this, and it sounds like this project has kind of been in development for quite some time. So nice to finally see it come out. And then, of course, he's got the Penguin series as well, which will be very interesting. Can't remember if that's coming out later this year or maybe next year now. It's been delayed as well a couple times. But anyways, really excited to take a look at this one. I know the first two episodes dropped at the same time here. Unfortunately, I've only watched the first episode, and to be honest, I was going to watch the second episode, but I thought this first episode really feels like a well-rounded pilot, and I'm not exactly sure if they are going for future seasons with this, especially a name like Colin Farrell being attached. I'm not sure what his availability would be for future seasons, but to me, this felt like a very well-rounded pilot episode to like a series with, multiple seasons to come. And it just felt like very complete. So instead of watching the second episode, I'm like, I'm just going to share my thoughts on this first one, because I also think the second episode is going to just be very much the same as the stuff we're getting here. It's the same director, the same writer. So I have a feeling it's going to be very similar either way, right? Even if I haven't necessarily, seen the whole episode, get all the details of it, I have a good idea of what is to come. So anyways, if you watched both episodes, or if you just watched the first episode, or if you haven't even seen it, love to hear your guys' thoughts. Either way, of course. And if you have seen it, what do you think about it? And if you haven't seen it yet, are you thinking about checking it out? What are your thoughts on it? Just seeing the trailers and all that stuff going into it. So yeah, love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you enjoy this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. So without any further ado, I'll just go over some things about this series, and then I'll get into kind of my overall thoughts. Shouldn't be too long of a review here. Just a few notes and stuff I wanted to share before I go any deeper here into the rest of the season after this first episode. So this pilot is directed by Fernando Meirelles, and he directed The Two Popes recently, the one with Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins, I believe, and that was an Oscar-nominated film as well, or at least the screenplay and the two actors there. So that was the most recent thing I've known him from, but he has been nominated for Best Director at the Oscars in the past, so he's kind of a big name, right, in that kind of sphere, but I'm not quite sure in the TV space that he's as big, so really interesting name there. And as I'll share my thoughts on the direction in this episode, really an interesting name to watch going forward, and probably a name that I should explore, a little bit more of his filmography, because, spoiler alert, I love the direction in this episode for sure. So the series is created and written by Mark Protosevich. And he hasn't actually done much when I looked into him. His biggest ones are I Am Legend, the movie with Will Smith. Love that movie, right? But, that was a long time ago, I think 2007. And he also wrote Old Boy, which is the Spike Lee movie as well, and that was from the 2010s. So he hasn't done much recently, but I thought, again, spoiler on my thoughts, I really quite liked this episode and the writing. So interesting to see a name like that, and maybe with this series, even if they don't do future seasons, maybe he can get some more stuff going here. So really great to see that. So in terms of the premise of this series here, or at least kind of what we've been given in the pilot here, so we're set in Los Angeles, and Colin Farrell plays John Sugar, who's a renowned private investigator, and he's hired by a famous Hollywood producer to find his missing granddaughter, who has disappeared in the past, but he suspects, something a little bit different now because she was an addict back then. Now she's sober, and so he's suspecting rather, foul play or something like that. And so he hires Sugar to come on and help him find her. So that's kind of the premise here, at least, in this pilot episode, and I would assume probably for the rest of the first season. It doesn't seem like a crime of the week type of show. It really does feel like this story is going to last the whole, I believe it's 8 episodes, so the whole 8 episodes here of the first season, whereas a lot of other shows would have solved this specific case within this first episode, and then we just go on to a crime of the week. So this one is a little different in that case. So, all right, in terms of my overall thoughts then, what did I think of this pilot episode? I want to start with Colin Farrell because obviously he's, probably the biggest draw for a lot of us that want to watch the show or that have now went ahead and watched. I think he's great. I think he's really great in this role. Not a whole lot of range on display here in this first episode, right? There's not a whole lot. There's obviously stuff that they're kind of teasing at and hinting at with this character that's a little more deeper, right? A little bit past the surface level of what this character or what John Sugar, looks and acts like. There's obviously some deeper going on, in his life, and they kind of tease at that. But in this episode, at least, we don't see, all of that. We just get little glimpses of it. And so I'm really confident that Colin Farrell is going to nail those parts as well in his performance. But so far, he's just capturing this character very, very well. Very charming, kind of quick-witted, smooth, right? Just that, like, he knows what to say at what times. He's always a step ahead of everybody. So yeah, I just think he plays it really well. The look that he has is also really great. I really like that. So yeah, I think he's just doing such a great job so far. And I think he was really... I think this was a really good casting choice, to have him play a character like this. I'm not sure if he's done this before. I mean, he's played like a detective guy, but a completely different version of him in True Detective Season 2, or at least that's one of the biggest things I know him from. Absolutely love his performance, by the way, in that season. I think it's really underrated, actually, even though the season itself, doesn't get high praise, but... this is just such a different character for him, and so I think he's really nailing it so far. Really gets a good look as well at that character. So I think the rest of the cast is good here as well. We just don't see much of them in this first episode. It is very Sugar-centric, if you will, or, it's really focused on John Sugar, our main character in this first episode, which I really like. If this is our main character, we really are going to, develop a connection to him, really kind of root for him, right? As any series, typically would. You want to have a lot of time with him in that first episode to kind of get us attached and get us into that character. And I think they do a great job of that here, right, in this first episode. So as a result of that, though, not much other cast. Kirby Howell-Baptiste is in this one. I believe she's kind of like his partner in a way. He goes to visit, the house where she's at, and she kind of seems like she's the one that gives him the jobs, right? People contact her, and then she, tells him where to go, that kind of thing. So an interesting character there, but again, we only get like a couple scenes with her. But she's great. I really liked her in Killing Eve Season 1. Unfortunately, they recasted her after that season because I think she had some other commitments, which was unfortunate because I really liked her character. Really great comedic relief in that season of Killing Eve too. So, great to see her here. James Cromwell from Succession, of course, playing Logan Roy's brother. I thought he was great. Again, very limited time, but he was good. And Amy Ryan as well. She's been around for quite some time. I haven't seen her in anything for quite a while. Just personally, I'm sure she's been in stuff, but just I haven't. And so, I thought she was okay in a couple scenes, where she gets drunk at the bar. And then, Sugar takes her home, but he gets a little carried away, right? Because he, obviously went there to get questions from her and get her to help, find this the missing granddaughter. And she just kind of gets too drunk and passes out, and he takes her home. So anyways, I thought she was fine in that. But the cast for future episodes looks really great. We don't see any of these names in this one, but I had, they are in the rest of the series. Names like Anna Gunn, of course, from Breaking Bad, Skylar White, just awesome. I think she's amazing. Eric Lang, really great actor. I think he's, really underrated. He's been, a kind of a character actor, I would say. Really great in Escape at Dannemora a few years ago. So he'll be great to see him. And Jason Butler-Harner, who's been around with the TV world for quite some time. Had a big role in Ozark, and I thought he was great in that. So yeah, some really great names to round up the cast as we go forward here. So looking forward to that for sure. Okay, so the main thing I want to talk about with this series in general, but specifically this episode, is the style. Like, this is just so impressive to me. So the direction, cinematography, the color grading, like just the after work of color grading. Obviously, I'm would bet a lot of money that they didn't film this in black and white, and so the beginning parts, that color grading of black and white, the score, even the editing, like just flawless commitment here to a specific style for the show, and I can't say enough about it. Like, I was just so impressed. So in terms of the direction, a whole lot of interesting shots here, right? We get some, shots that are literally filmed on an angle, right? Some really great close-up shots. What else? I mean, just some really interesting camera work in this episode. And then I guess that kind of goes along with the editing, right? It's like these shots, these parallel shots in some of the scenes. Like the one scene he's sitting with and talking with James Cromwell's character, right? When he's telling him about his granddaughter, and then it's kind of the parallel shot of him sitting with Kirby Howell Baptiste's character when they're talking about the case. And so it's a really great job of with the editing, but also the direction, getting these shots that really piece together so well, and it almost feels like you're in. You almost can't even tell which scene it is and what time it's from, because these shots are like the exact same, and they're so close up that you can't even really see the background in that. So just really kind of that parallel back and forth, I think, is great. The cinematography, there's like so many of these shots, and also the direction. There's shots of the moon. There's one shot specifically, I think, of like the moon, and then it kind of transitioned into his eye, right? The pupil, right, of his eye. And so just like some really great stuff. And then the cinematography with some of the shots of just that little kind of circle on the screen. The rest is black, and we're just kind of all looking through this circle at a specific detail or something that they really want to stand out. Honestly, just really impressive stuff. The score, I thought, really fit well with the stuff that's going on, and again, that style that they're going for, especially building up Sugar. I think the score really helped with that. So I just can't say enough about this. Like, I was blown away by the style here and the commitment to it. Like I said, with all of those elements all working at the top of their game all together. Is just really, really impressive. And it really makes it feel unique. And overall, this really felt cinematic, right? Like, it really did. And of course, Apple TV Plus is behind it. I believe it was an Apple TV Studios production. So obviously they probably put quite a bit of money into this one. And would want it to be cinematic or feel like that. And so I think they definitely achieved that here for sure, right? And the other thing I want to say about it is that I think it really fits the story, and even more so the character of John Sugar, this whole style, right? It's not just used for the sake of, we just want the show to be stylistic, so we're going to do a bunch of these unique shots and all this stuff, right? It really kind of, especially towards the end of this episode, right? I think the style really adds to it and kind of draws out that character of Sugar, especially at the end when that whole sequence where he is suddenly bleeding, right? And then he goes to clean up his wound, gets in the shower, and thinks that he's bleeding and all this stuff, tries to clean up the cut. And then the kind of screen just goes to black, right? It just goes to black all of a sudden, and then we come back and he's just sitting in the shower, and it was kind of like a hallucination kind of thing that he was in there, and so then he kind of wakes up and comes to, he's not bleeding, right? Like the wound was perfectly fine, and all this stuff, he was just imagining. So yeah, I just like that whole style of that ending sequence where we go black, and then like I said, they use that kind of circle as they kind of zone into the screen, and then again they transition from the eye, and they get a number of shots in sequence there of his eyes kind of opening and closing, and so just that little circle that we're seeing through is almost like seeing through his eyes. And even at the end, I believe it's like almost at the very end of the episode, where he is like kind of finally closing his eyes, but it's still that little circle that remains as we're kind of looking through the door at him on the bed, and so it's almost like he still has one eye open, right? It's like still there's just a little bit of opening there, and of course he injects himself with something too, so we obviously get the idea that he has trouble sleeping, and so this is kind of helping him to get to sleep. So yeah, I really loved it. I can't say enough about it. Really cinematic. Just great stuff. And like I said, it's not just for the sake of, let's make this stylized. Like I think it really is lending itself well to the character of Sugar. And I think as the series goes on, again, I'm not sure if this style will be as prominent as the season goes on, especially when you get a different director in there. Perhaps not, but for this first episode, when you're establishing the character of John Sugar, I think it works really well alongside that. So really great stuff. Can't say enough about that for sure. Now, yes, the story and the character archetype of John Sugar is fairly cliche, right? So if we're getting down to the writing of things, the writing aspect of the show, the kind of story here, yeah, I mean, we've seen, some people probably that are really fans of this genre have probably seen hundreds of characters like John Sugar at this point. The story is, very familiar, right? It's a, detective that's, even like a private investigator, PI, that's hired to find, rich person's daughter or a granddaughter or someone in their family. So it's a very familiar story, very familiar territory that we're treading here. And the character of John Sugar, I mean, like I said, we've seen many, versions of this type of character for sure. Now, having said all that, I think it's being done very well, though. Right? It's like, yes, it's cliche, and look, yes, this is kind of an archetype that Colin Farrell is playing, but I think they do it really well. So it's not, you can't really say that it's bad, because yeah, it's familiar, but I think this is like the best that you could do at this specific, genre and the specific cliches. So while it doesn't necessarily transcend those cliches, I think they just do a really good job with what it is. And of course, the style kind of helps it feel less cliche and stand out a little more, right? And so that's the thing too. It's not that, yes, it's cliche and it's familiar, but I think they're doing it really well. And then that style, right? That stylized stuff that I've just talked about is kind of the thing that just pushes it kind of over the line and makes it stand out and make it unique. Even though, like I said, it's very familiar and it's kind of, treading in a very familiar genre, right? And especially now, like to me at least, I just think this is such an oversaturated genre right now. Even just looking at the shows that are on right now and in the coming, few months, there are just so many of these, shows like Ripley on Netflix. There was Tracker on NBC, I want to say, or one of the network channels there. Of just a lot of these shows where, it's centered on a male lead that's very charming and smooth. He's not always a detective, but he's always kind of like solving a crime or helping the police in some way. And we've seen so many of those stories, right? That really successful TV shows have come from them. And I'll be the first to admit, like some really great TV shows. So it's not bad that they're using the same cliche. And to me, with that style, I think it makes it unique. I think it stands out. And ultimately, I think it makes it worth watching, right? Well, compared to some of these other shows that, to me, just kind of get lost in the cliches and nothing is really special about them, right? Just nothing really makes them stand out. So have to give them a lot of credit for that one for sure. But of course, you got to acknowledge it's pretty cliche, and we've seen all this stuff before, right? So like I said, I think this is the best detective kind of mystery type show. I'm not exactly sure how to categorize all the stuff I said, with Ripley and Tracker and all these other shows. I guess just like detective genre, I guess that kind of encompasses all of them. But at least for that type of show, I think this is the best one I've seen in quite a while. Thinking about it just kind of off the top of my head, maybe Mayor of Easttown, that's obviously a female lead, but I would compare that show to this. It's kind of similar genre, right? Even though she actually is a cop and not a private investigator, so it's a little different. But obviously I was a huge fan of Mayor of Easttown, so to me this is probably the best show of that kind of genre since Mayor of Easttown, and that was almost 3 years ago now. So to me at least, I was really impressed by this, and I think it does stand out. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this genre. Like I said, I think it's just been really oversaturated the last couple years, and especially, going forward in this year and the next couple years here when we hear of projects being developed. It's just a lot of this stuff. So I'm just kind of burnt out by it, I think, or a little oversaturated. However, if you are a fan of this and, you don't care about the oversaturation because you just like the genre and you love seeing these types of shows, I think this will really hit a sweet spot with you. I think you'll really, really love this show because, like I said, I think this is like the best possible version of a show in this genre that feels a little familiar. So, I can't recommend this enough. If you like this genre of detective stuff, I think like this has a chance to be one of your favorite shows of the year. I would go as far to say that because I think it's really on that level. And if you aren't as big of a fan of the genre like myself, I think there's still a lot to enjoy as I've, waxed poetic about it so far. So I really recommend this to anyone. I mean, even if you're not a huge fan of the genre, I really would still recommend this. So yeah, definitely recommend this pilot for sure. I'll be watching more episodes. Definitely I'll be checking out episode 2 probably shortly after this, actually. And then, catch up with the rest of the show here week to week. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season, honestly. The only worry that I would maybe have is that because the show is not a crime of the week, format here, I do worry, and this happens with a lot of shows nowadays, with 8 episodes, will this story be able to be stretched that far for 8 episodes? I have noticed the episodes are a little shorter. They're usually about in the 30-minute territory, to like 30 to 40-minute territory, rather than an hour. So that's really encouraging, but that would be the only worry here, is that things may get a little stretched out and we might get some filler. But other than that, really hopeful for the rest of the season. So, I do plan as of now to do a review for the whole season once it ends. So stay tuned for that if you're interested and you follow along with the show. Anyways, I'll just do it for all my thoughts on Sugar, the new Apple TV Plus series here starring Colin Farrell. So, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode. If you're also looking forward to, watching the rest of the season here, checking out more episodes, love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. But anyways, that'll just do it for this one. So, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I will see you then in my next review.
Sugar, oh honey, honey, you are my candy girl, and you got me